Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar to Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar to Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 23rd day of February 2026 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 18, conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. Beginning in text 15 at the bottom of page 670. Shariravan Manobhir Yat Karma Prarabhate Naraha Nyayam Va Viparitam Va Panchayate Tasya Hetavaha Shariravan Manobhir Yat Karma Prarabhate Naraha Nyayam Va Viparitam Va Panchayate Tasya Hetavaha Shariravan Manobhir Yat Karma Prarabhate Naraha Nyayam Va Viparitam Va Panchayate Tasya Hetavaha Shariravan Manobhir Yat Karma Prarabhate Naraha Nyayam Va Viparitam Va Panchayate Tasya Hetavaha Shariravan Manobhir Yat Karma Prarabhate Naraha Nyayam Nyayam Va Viparitam Va Panchayate Tasya Hetavaha. Luis. Page, bottom of 670. I'm sorry, I thought they mentioned that page. Maybe if you use two hands, it'd be quicker. Shariravan Manobhir Yat Karma Prarabhate Naraha Nyayam Va Viparitam Va Panchayate Tasya Hetavaha. Anyone online?
Prem Gopal.
Go for it.
Shariravan Manobhir Yat
Shariravan Manobhir Yat
Karma Prarabhate Naraha
Karma Prarabhate Naraha
Nyayam Va Viparitam Va
Nyayam Va Viparitam Va
Panchayate Tasya Hetavaha
Panchayate Tasya Hetavaha. Okay. Sharira by the body, Vak, speech, Manobhihi, and mind. Yat, which, karma, work, Prarabhate, begins, Naraha, a person, Nyayam, right, Va or Viparitam, the opposite, Va or Pancha, 5, Ete, all these, Tasya, its, Hetavaha, causes. Translation. Translation. Whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors. Purport. The words right and wrong are very significant in this verse. Right work is work done in terms of the prescribed directions in the scriptures, and wrong work is work done against the principles of the scriptural injunctions. But whatever is done requires these 5 factors for its complete performance. All right, the 5 factors, text 14, I'll just read that translation. The place of action, the body, the performer, that's the soul, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. These are the 5 factors of action. All right, let's go on to text 16. Tattaivam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tuyaha pashyat yakrita buddhitvan nasapashyati durmatihi. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Purport. A foolish person cannot understand that the Supersoul is sitting as a friend within and conducting his actions. Although the material causes are the place, the worker, the endeavor, and the senses, the final cause is the Supreme, the Personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should see not only the four material causes, but the Supreme efficient cause as well. One who does not see the Supreme thinks himself to be the doer. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Urmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this calls to mind a previous verse, text 27 of chapter 3. Prakate kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimodhatma karta hamiti manyate. That, let's get the actual translation there. That one who is bewildered by false ego, the spirit soul bewildered by the influence of false ego thinks himself the doer of activities, which are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So what actually happens when we do something? What is going on? We're doing things all day, every day, even unconsciously. And so there's all kinds of things going on. You have this machine of the material body, which is an incredible machine that is put together, obviously, by a very intelligent creator. And there are certain elements of that for anything to go on. Obviously, there's the brain has to be there, the nervous system, the muscles, the digestive system, all the elements that go into making the body workable. And it actually works because there's a soul and the super soul inside. The consciousness is the essential part. Of course, we forget that. We tend to identify with the body as the self, and this is the great mistake, the false ego. And that's what's mentioned here, in the verse I read in the 3rd chapter. The soul bewildered by false ego. Now, what does false ego actually mean? It means a false sense of who I actually am. The ego means your sense of self. So, kind of by default, without any input or any, from the real scripture or influence of this knowledge that we have, every living entity is is identifying with the body as the self. You have the little ant, Now he's not thinking, "Am I an ant?" No, it just thinks, this is life. I mean, there's a lot of others just like me. And when we find something sweet, we go for it. We give little messages back. There's a whole thing going on. And there's no planning. There's no thought of past or future. It's all in the present. And that goes on for, I don't know how long an ant's life is. I don't know, maybe 2 weeks. And then something happens, old age, and becomes dysfunctional. You get crushed or whatever, But you don't die. Nobody dies. You simply go on. Then, the next life up the scale. Because the animals, they automatically go up. The soul's in the animal body. There's no sin for an ant, That goes on up. I don't know what's next up, from an ant, maybe a flying, a fly, which is, at least you can fly, But gradually, as we learn from the Shastra, there's a whole churn, of these living entities coming up, and they come up, eventually to the human form. And even in the human form, especially in this age, there's all kinds of animalistic life going on, and chances are you'll go back down again. But if you're fortunate and you come in touch with this knowledge, and you're fortunate enough to respond to it with interest, I think we discussed this last time, previous time, is that wonderful couple of verses by Rupa Goswami describing how one progresses from faith to prema, from Shraddha to prema. But that faith is an essential beginning. And as Prabhupada points out, that this faith is not the ultimate faith that's described by Lord Chaitanya when he gives the definition of faith to Sanatana Goswami. Shraddha shabde vishwas kohe sudridha nishchoy Krishna bhakti koile sarva karma krita hoy. Very important verse. So the Shraddha is the foundation of bhakti. And what it says here is that the pure faith is a very firm conviction that just by perfecting myself, by following the path of bhakti marga, marga means path, that ultimately all of my aspirations will be fulfilled. I will fulfill my life by doing that. I don't have to do anything else. That's firm faith, not easy to attain. But preliminary faith, which is what he starts out in this verse, Adao Shuddha, Adam is beginning, means why you came to class. You have some faith that, yes, this is the right thing to do. I'll learn something there. Was, getting the Prabhupada wanted us to do it. Whatever brought you here, that's a very important, it's based on faith. And Prabhupada said it's more or less like respect and interest and determination to practice devotional service. You don't have that absolute, conviction that it's, that if I just follow Krishna consciousness, I'll perfect my life. It may not be there all the time, but it's there more or less, so that it brings enough faith to get into the routine of doing the things that devotional life means, chanting and hearing and so forth, and not doing other things. So here, in the 18th chapter here, Krishna is describing the perfection of renunciation, and obviously it doesn't mean renounce activity. It means to renounce those things which are outside the realm of devotional activity, and to fill your days with devotional life. And if you do that, then automatically, just to again make the difference between vairagya and tyaga, the two different, very important words. Vairagya means to literally be free of the desire to perform non-devotional activities. Tyaga means to give them up. Even though you may want them, you give it up, out of austerity. When you hear the four regular principles, there's often some struggle to do that. So that's tyaga. That's tyaga. There's no vairagya yet. But if you practice devotional service, there will also come vairagya. I like to give the nice analogy of the example of McDonald's. My story when I discovered McDonald's when they were born, when they came on the scene in the early 60s. And suddenly my bowling, my weekly bowling adventure with my friends turned into, we have a nice feast, those, wonderful cheeseburgers and fries, wonderful. I didn't think I was committing a great sin. I didn't realize it, But, over the years, at one point I became a vegetarian way before I got into spiritual life. So I wouldn't, there's no question of McDonald's anymore. But the point is that it plants a desire. When you do anything that's pleasurable, then you want to do it again and again. And it's a kind of an addiction, and it can be a really strong addiction. I was reading today about how addictive, again, as you well know, gambling it can be. Right? I'm not going to get into any detail, but you know that. Not personally him, but he knows about it. That it's just like a drug. They've even done tests, that the stimulation in the brain when someone wins the lottery is similar to, getting a shot of cocaine or something, and what really you become addicted to is the experience of being able to win. Like I always give the example. Forgive me. This is my only involvement with gambling now. Is that I go by the little bodega, and there's the sign giving you the amount of millions of dollars you can win, And it was up to 999 million. It means that it was $1 billion. They didn't have room for it, And somebody must have won it in the United States, And so that went down to only like 150 million. Now it's going up 200 and something. Now you can imagine, I just keep chanting Hare Krishna. I'm not at all like that. Sometimes I think, okay, suppose I did play and I did win, then, I would have a big black, stain on my character. Oh, but he's gambling. They don't care if I won $200 million. So it's not even. It's like, no, thank you. It's not even. Yeah. But I'll tell you, I when I was a kid, me and my brother used to play cards in the bedroom, cards, and eventually he had his friends come in there and they would bet, a few pennies or $1 or whatever, And so at a certain point, I got the taste for that. And anyway, I would go to the racetrack, You know, I had a little job, you know, and I was paid $1.35 an hour. And if I would stay there a long time, I'd graduate to maybe $1.40, $1.50 an hour. Yeah. So anyways, I was living at home, so I had a little, money to spare. So I would go to the racetrack on Long Island. They didn't have the riding on the backs of horses, but they would ride these little carts, Have you ever seen that? I forget what they call them. Yeah, good. Anyways, rooting for, I lost, I won, Luckily, at one point, I lost my whole paycheck for the week. I said, okay, that's it, I'm finished. And I still had my bed at home, I was living at home. Anyway, and I, because I experienced a little of the, what it means, the excitement of, can I win? Can I win? Come on, go faster, that whole thing, But it's a real trap, and people become addicted to that as much as to cocaine, and it's very damaging. And the guys who sell it, I remember when the only place to gamble in New York State was at the racetrack. Then at a certain point, they started the state lotteries because they saw they could make a lot of money with the taxation, And even if you win, they tax that, So anyway, it became very prominent. And there's a reason why when you have, if you read the first canto, or when you read the first canto, you'll soon come across Maharaj Pariksit. He's walking around, observing his kingdom, and he comes across this ugly man who's beating the legs of a cow. I said, "What are you doing? You can't do that, So he explains that cow symbolizes, and cow and the bull symbolizes religion. And these four qualities: austerity, truthfulness, mercy, and cleanliness. So each one of the legs of the cow represents one of those elements of pious life, Those are necessary too for devotional service. And so he's beating on that. One cow was limping, all the three of his legs were already useless, and he was in the last leg beating, and that represents truthfulness, because Kali Yuga, there's less and less of that. And you can see it, AI, it just means, some AI slop that they put out there and it looks real. Wow, you said that? No, it's just, it's an AI image. It's what do they used to call it? Deep fakes. Deep fakes, right? So there's all this lying going on starting from the top, And so it's very difficult. We're dealing probably with the absolute truth. This is the real truth about, who you are, what the goal of life is, where you can find real happiness. So if we have faith in that, then we can absorb the knowledge and live our lives according to that knowledge, and begin to experience it. And one of the first things that happens is you start to lose the taste for all those things that are degrading, that are degrading you. And that's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Again, back to this first canto, second chapter, beginning text 6. What is real dharma? What is real religion? Okay, now it's getting warm in here. Maybe you can set it up. So Savai Pungsang Paro Dharma, the supreme dharma. Okay, first of all, what is dharma? Dharma it has a certain root. Every word in Sanskrit has a certain root. And the root of the word dharma is dri. It's the same root for the word dhari. Notice that word? Giri dhari. Giri means mountain. Dhari means lifter. This is New Govardhan. It celebrates especially that pastime where Krishna lifted the mountain, and thus he was known as Giridhari. See? So what is the essence of dharma? Dharma means the essential quality of something. That which is, if it didn't have that thing, it wouldn't be that thing. So I'm not going to give the analogy of the chair. I do that every time. But everything has a dharma. There's a car out there. Okay. There's so many cars. I take this walk. My God, there's this car that's missing the whole hood of the car. You can see the engine and everything. Have you ever, you go in the same route. He also walks up the cast. You've seen that car. I said, well, how does that, how can you have a car like that? Anybody can come by, and steal. Anyway, it's still a car because it runs. Otherwise, it wouldn't get there. So everything has the sidewalk, right? So you take it for granted. You walk on the sidewalk and it's made of cement. It's going to hold you up, So if it suddenly collapses under you, what's that? It's a trap. I was betrayed by that. The sidewalk. So the real nature of what Dharma, the supreme Dharma, because there's all kinds of Dharmas. There's a Dharma by which you can become a skilled jurist or something, you know. Maybe you would say that would be part of Varnashram Dharma. You could be, you know, part of the higher class, the Brahminical class. But the supreme Dharma, because they want to know what is the supreme Dharma by which the soul can really achieve is ultimate happiness, you see. So that Dharma which engenders, which results in pure devotional service. Savapungsam paro Dharma, the supreme Dharma, Savapungsam paro Dharma, yato, by which, yato bhaktid adhokshaje, where loving devotional service to adhokshaja. Now this is a very important name of God, which is usually used when you're speaking about the beginning stages of devotion, because you don't know anything about who the God is. If you start immediately with Krishna dancing with the gopis or going out in the forest, it doesn't make any sense. That's God. What does that have to do with God? Yeah. So you use the word adhokshaja. Adhokshaja means made of three words: adha, aksha, and ja. Now ja is short for janma, which you know is birth, right? And Janmashtami. And aksha means eyes, or in general all the senses. So what is born from the function of these senses in ordinary is knowledge, you see. But that kind of knowledge is always imperfect. That's called the ascending process. We try to figure, we observe something, we have a theory, we write about it, we think about it. But we're using our imperfect brain and senses to come to an idea of what the truth is. And it's inevitably false. So Krishna is Adha Akshaja. He pushes that knowledge down. In other words, he's transcendental to whatever knowledge we can gain with our senses and mind. You see? So that's the name for God. So that which engenders bhakti, or loving devotional service to the inconceivable Lord, that is the supreme Akshaja. But that bhakti has two characteristics. He starts right from the second chapter of the first canto, describing this. We're not fooling around. Ahaituki means free of any material motive. Now it's important to understand that sometimes, you know, we say unmotivated. But no, it's not really unmotivated. Everything we do, even as devotees, there's a motivation. I want to become a pure devotee. Therefore I get up early, I chant Hare Krishna, I follow, you know, the regs. So it's all motivated, but it's a spiritual motivation. It's not a material motivation. A material motivation means something I'm going to enjoy. That kind of karma keeps you bound on the wheel of birth and death. You see, that's why one of the first principles is karma yoga means to give the fruits of your activity up, you know, and especially to give it up for Krishna. Then it becomes bhakti. But whatever you do, don't become attached to the things that you own or that you can enjoy, because that just keeps you coming back again. That attachment will stay with you even when you die, and you still want to enjoy it. Okay, come back again. You know. So. That's all. So the perfection. Now this is renunciation. Renunciation means giving up those things which we want to materially enjoy, and if appropriate, giving them to Krishna so that he can enjoy. That's the whole idea of the Haidaya Prasad. You know, we get the Indians come. You know, they give a bag of rice. You know, all right, they paid good money for the rice. They give it to Krishna. That's devotion. You know, that Krishna will enjoy it and it'll become prasadam and all these things. You know, so that's the devotional spirit. So now here you'll see the perfection of renunciation will actually culminate in the perfection of bhakti, because it means a pure devotional service means completely renounce any personally motivated activity, and everything you do, every breath you take, is motivated by the how can I please Krishna with what I'm doing, you know. Well, I don't have to work. I don't have to guess, because I learned from the Shastra, the scripture. I learned from the Guru's instruction. I was just reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. The very first chapter of the very first Leela, Adi Leela, is about the gurus, means the instructing gurus and the initiating guru, the two. So that you know, just as Arjuna, when he gives up arguing with Krishna, said, no, you know, Bhishma raised me, he's my grandfather, I don't want to kill him. What about my teacher? There's no way I can fight him, you know. And then there's all these other relatives and friends, the Kuru dynasty. I can't fight with them on the basis of, you know, material relationship. So he sits down, he's paralyzed. But then The key verse, karpan nidosho pahata swabhava. I can see that my swabhava, my nature as a kshatriya, has been stolen away by this miserly mood of material relationship. You see, karpan kripana, karpan nidosho is a fault. Dosho apahata swabhava. Prichami tvam dharma samudacheta. I'm asking you now, because I am bewildered about what dharma is. Human life means to really find out what dharma is and to try one's best to follow it. One's swadharma in varnashram dharma, but more importantly, the dharma that I just spoke about before. That activity which will awaken our natural and eternal relationship with Krishna and perfect our lives. So we can get out of this birth and death, birth and death, birth and death, and going on for millions of years, and finally go back home, back to Godhead, where we came from, where we belong. That's real dharma, and that's what Bhagavatam is from beginning to end, ultimately, and also Bhagavad Gita, ultimately. All right, I don't want to get too far afield here. So we're in 18. What's the number we were at? Page number? Just give me the page. 671. All right, I'm sorry, I kind of went a little far afield here, but it's good to put it in context. Okay, we read 15. So the different elements of activity. What are activity? The sense, right? He's discussed. Okay. So he did 15 and 16. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent, cannot see things as they are. Okay, 17. Yasya nahang krito bhavo buddhir yasya nalipyate hatvapi sahima lokan nahanti nanabhadyate. Okay, here's the motivation, you see. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions. Purport. In this verse, the Lord informs Arjuna that the desire not to fight arises from false ego. Arjuna thought himself to be the doer of action, but he did not consider the supreme sanction within and without. If one does not know that a super sanction is there, why should he act? But one who knows the instruments of work, himself as the worker and the Supreme Lord as the Supreme Sanctioner, is perfect in doing everything. Such a person is never in illusion. Personal activity and responsibility arise from false ego and godlessness, or a lack of Krishna consciousness. Anyone who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Super Soul, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though killing, does not kill, nor is he ever affected by the reaction of such killing. When a soldier kills under the command of a superior officer, he is not subject to being judged. But if a soldier kills on his own personal account, then he is certainly judged by a court of law. So everything boils down ultimately to motivation. It's all boiling down to motivation. Why are we doing what we're doing? You know, the 4 or 5, how many millions of people in this city, the adults wake up, those who have a job get up in the morning and say, okay, it's time to go to work. Got to make some money, got to pay the rent, got to pay the bills, the mortgage, all these different things, So that motivates them, They have you build a big attachment, right? All the attachments that you build, and that's your world. And whatever you're doing, it's motivated by one of those attachments. And a lot of it is just personal attachment. I want to do this, all right. Work is over, it's Friday night, I'm going to go get a drink, let me go down to the bar and hang out with my friends, It's just a natural thing to do, But you're deepening your entanglement in the material energy. And it's such a tragedy. Prabhupada saw that, the Acharyas. It's such a waste of human life. Only in human life can we be interested in such things as this and actually imbibe the knowledge and transform our lives and be saved. It's just like imagine, Prabhupada and all the Acharyas are on a boat, and they're in the water is the material energy, and there's a boat wreck, they go to the boat and there's people, drowning or trying to stay afloat, and they have a chance to save them. you know, by throwing the preserver and reeling him in, putting him on the boat. You know? And that's the urgency that they see. Is that here all these people are flailing within the material world, you know, and doing things that are sure to have them lose the human form of life. It's a tragedy, you know. It doesn't have to be. In other words, there's a way of living and thinking and forming your life so that you can actually move toward perfection. You may not move in one lifetime, but at least you'll start, and there's no loss or diminution, you know. So this is what the great acharyas, such as Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta, all within our line, they feel the urgency. And so did Lord Chaitanya. I think I was, this morning, I think it was, I was talking about the reason, the internal, external reason for Lord Chaitanya's appearance. I think it was this morning. Because it's coming up, we're coming up on the wonderful appearance of Lord Chaitanya. And that, I think, I'm going to mention that because they asked me to give the talk. You know, why did he appear? You know, and for internal and external reasons, you know. And we should also have our own internal and external reasons. You know, in other words, we should say, yeah, I really want to advance so that I can experience the higher elements of Krishna consciousness and feel, you know, ecstasy and all these things. It's in the books. It's our birthright. But as well, I wanted to, you know, serve Lord Chaitanya and Krishna and Srila Prabhupada and all the acharyas by trying to give this to others and developing that sense of compassion, you know. But we really develop it when we can feel it ourselves, when we know the great value and understanding, yeah, I was like them, you know, and I chanted Hare Krishna like that, and now I'm feeling a whole different, you know, and I have this great treasure by which one can perfect the human life and end all this suffering and this craziness, get out of this crazy world. So let me give it out somehow, you know. I'll give this mantra card or books or prasadam or chant Hare Krishna. Somehow be part of the mission, you know, to save the world. So this is, Prabhupada, you know, worked so hard to put these books together, and I had a great opportunity to give a little small service to the books coming out too. Okay, so that was 17? Okay. Jnanam Geyam Parigyata Trivadha Karma Chodana Kadanam Karma Karteti Trivadha Karma Sangraha. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the three factors that motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer are the three constituents of action. Purport: there are three kinds of impetus for daily work: knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower. The instruments of work, the work itself, and the worker are called the constituents of work. Any work done by any human being has these elements. Before one acts, there is some impetus, which is called inspiration or motivation. Any solution arrived at before work is actualized, is a subtle form of work. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Then work takes the form of action. First, one has to undergo the psychological process of thinking, feeling, and willing. Now that's important, that's those three. Thinking, feeling, willing. And that is called impetus. The inspiration to work is the same if it comes from the scripture or from the instruction of the spiritual master. When the inspiration is there and the worker is there, then actual activity takes place by the help of the senses, including the mind, which is the center of all the senses. The sum total of all the constituents of an activity are called the accumulation of work. Now, those who, you know, are familiar with the morning program, we sing that song, right, to this guru. Very important. It's very important ideas in there. And one is as Shri Guru Chadanarati Ese Uttamagati Ye Prasade Guru Prasade Guru Mukha Padma Vakachita Tekodayaka Arna Kariya Manayasha means that let the words of the Guru be my how do we say it? We edited it. May my only wish be to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from the mouth of the spiritual master. So that's an important prayer, you know, that we should feel that. Because what are we going to? How are we going to know what to do? This is where knowledge comes from, you know. But why should that be so inspiring? And this is where that second part comes in. Shri Guru Charanave Ese Uttamagati. That attraction, love for the lotus feet of the spiritual master. Shri Guru Charane Rati, which means appreciation for what the spiritual master has done, is doing for speaking to us, instructing us, taking care. Everything that Srila Prabhupada did is showing us the perfect Acharya. Taking the trouble to come, and all of the austerities he undertook to teach us and to produce the books. Everything he did. And he did it out of love. He did it out of love for Krishna and for his parts and parcels. And he was so enlivened when he saw someone take to devotional service, And so the real inspiration, just like, why does Mother Yashoda, go out and bring Krishna back when he's playing so long, and say, you have to come back now because you've been playing, you need to take lunch, and there's this whole wonderful scene in the Krishna book, and everything she does, because it's completely out of love. She's seeing, he's hiding all his majesty and power so that she can feel that she has to protect him and serve him and sulk him and everything, everything that a mother does. So he enjoys that, as he says in the in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. When the gopis chastise him, that steals his mind away from the hymns of the Vedas. He'd much rather have that going on, much more pleasing. So he's hiding his majesty to evoke these intimate relations. It's wonderful. So, but it also works with the spiritual master, that out of affection, love, and regard, and respect for the spiritual master, you try to do what he wants. Because okay, he wants me to get up early. Oh, I'll try to get up early. I'm really going to get up early today. It's 3 alarms. And then before I decide to go back to sleep, jump into the cold shower and wake up. Whatever it takes, right? Out of regard, and that's so helpful, because then when the spiritual master speaks, he's speaking out of desire to help you. So you're really accepting it as his expression of love. Like Prabhupada would sign all his letters famously, at the beginning, he'd say, please, so-and-so Das, or Dasi, please accept my blessings. And then at the end, he says, your ever well-wisher. Just like Krishna says, Bhoktanam yastam sarvalok mahir, Suridam sarvabhutanam. He said, this is the peace formula, famously, Yad gadva shanti achiti. That Bhoktaram Yagyatabasam, one who knows that I am the enjoyer of all austerities and sacrifices, the ultimate enjoyer. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, and I am the supreme controller and ruler of all the worlds. Well, this majesty is, it's Krishna. But then the third line, he gives this very intimate, Suridam Sarva Bhutanam. But that I am the best well-wishing friend of every living entity, including you, who are reading this. Oh, okay. Then now I have a very powerful friend. He runs everything. So then one can be very peaceful. He's my friend. So if I just recognize his supremacy and I work for him and I, try to love him, then he'll protect me. Yatva mam shantam. You can have peace. That's how you can have peace. Otherwise, there's no peace. Because it's never enough. If you're trying to, feed your ego, it's never satisfied. I become a billionaire. Big deal. He has 10 billion. Yeah. 1 billion. What's that? That's nothing. It's madness, right? And we see that madness everywhere. So it all boils down to that feeling, because we're part and parcel of Krishna. We have the power to love. But it's being misdirected in these material elements, and it's so frustrating, because we love someone and we have a nice thing going, and then they die, or they find someone else, or they just grow old, or something, So you invested all this time, but it's temporary. It's frustrating, and eventually you die, and who knows where you go with all of the things that you've done, the ordinary person. So understanding and having faith in that first instruction, yes, Every single body dies, nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. Or, I would say, this is based on Rishabdev. Don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for fleeting happiness. Through bhakti yoga, worldly life transcend and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. So that's the contrast. Fleeting, flickering happiness and all its attendant disappointments and ultimate, bringing you back again to birth, old age, disease, and death. Or practicing bhakti yoga and transcending all that and tasting divine bliss, which, hey, let's keep that going, and take you back to Godhead. Okay, I'll take your question or comment now, Bhakti Chad. What verse are we on?
Hare Krishna. Page 63, 673. That sentence that you talked about. Any solution arrived at before work is actualized is a subtle form of work.
This is the purport to text 19?
To 18.
Oh, 18. Any solution arrived at before work is actualized is a subtle form of work.
Yeah, are they just talking about or Srila Prabhupada talking about thinking about what you're going to do as far as subtle, like the mind work before you
thinking,
actually...
feeling, willing. That's the key. Yeah, you think about it first, then you want to do it, then you actually do it.
Yeah.
Thinking, feeling, willing.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thanks.
Yeah, so that's a subtle form of action, is visualizing yourself doing it. Just like, the kid watches the Olympics. He says, oh, I want to do that. I could run that fast. I like to run, or that jumping or whatever they do. And so he hasn't really done anything yet, but just visualizing himself doing it, that's a form of subtle action. And that if the circumstances allow, then he'll actually start doing it, as a kid, really running fast. Oh, he could be good, they give him so you see, so it's all going there and leading toward, hey, I won the race, hey, I get the prize, little gold thing, and whatever it is. So that's all, it feeds your ego, that's a form of conditioning. So that's why, hearing about Krishna, hearing about the activities of the devotees, and also participating as best you can, that's the watering the seed of the creeper of bhakti. It's the creeper of desire, Otherwise, you're watering material seeds, And so somehow or other, you're going to grow up and you're going to aspire for something, Unfortunately, in this modern world, the availability of apparently easy ways of gratifying your senses, whether it's, spending hours on video games or some drug, they're always out there, easy gratification. And that obliterates the more your intelligence and your ability to absorb and hear and become interested in the higher things, this more the spiritual things, and that's a very powerful form of conditioning. And that's and the addictions, addiction is real. What Baba was asked by John Lennon. Right, he's sitting there in Tittenhurst, I think, his estate. The whole thing. Probably went in '69. They didn't have Bhaktivedanta Manor yet, so the devotees were allowed to live there as long as they helped build the place, So Prabhupada was living there, and so he's in the room with John and Yoko, and they're talking about this and that. Prabhupada, and he's looking up. There's a portrait of them, and they were obviously intoxicated, and they were famously heroin addicts. So at one point, John or Yoko asked, "Well, how do I recognize who the guru is?" And Prabhupada says, that person who's most addicted to Krishna, you see? And they can relate to that. Haribol, welcome, people. All right, so where are we? 19? Jnanam karma cha kartacha chidaiva gunabedataha prochate gunasankyane yatavat chunutanyapi According to the three different modes of material nature, there are three kinds of knowledge: action and performer of action. Now hear of them for me. Purport. In the 14th chapter, the three divisions of the modes of material nature were elaborately described. In that chapter, it was said that the mode of goodness is illuminating, the mode of passion materialistic, and the mode of ignorance conducive to laziness and indolence. All the modes of nature, material nature, are binding. They are not sources of liberation. Even in the mode of goodness, one is conditioned. In the 17th chapter, the different types of worship by different types of men and different modes of material nature were described. In this verse, the Lord says that He wishes to speak about the different types of knowledge, workers, and work itself according to the three material modes. Okay, so that's how the chapter will continue. It's getting a little late. So this is almost, there's a certain Sankhya kind of feel to this, this analysis so that we can understand where we're at. What is the knowledge that I'm imbibing here? Is this knowledge that's conducive to my spiritual advancement, or is some knowledge that's going to keep me trapped here in the material world? This activity, karma, you see, that's key. The activity is done according to the basis of knowledge and feeling, thinking, feeling, and then willing and activity. So that's why Prabhupada was so adamant about these books, producing them, us reading them, hearing them, distributing them, because by thinking and changing your understanding of who you are and what the world is and what's valuable and what's not, then it will inform what you want to do, And Prabhupada gave us so much this to do. The most important thing to do is at one point find time in the day to join the kirtan. If you're not around any devotees, then that blessed internet, you can find so many wonderful kirtans on the internet. Join in. But choosing that choice is the key. Okay, I'm going to try this chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Your mind will be wandering, but you're still trying. You're trying to experience. And if you're really sincere, you'll have moments of appreciation. Yeah, I'm feeling much less anxious than I did. I feel much more peaceful or something, whatever. Enough to keep you going again next day. Let's try it again. And especially to come in, and associate with devotees who have some experience in this. There's obviously such potency in the mantra. That's what's so clear. If you just try it, you don't do anything else. You're still, violating all four regular principles. You haven't even begun that. But if you chant even a little bit with you put your mind on it, that experience, Krishna will take root in your heart. And you become interested to read that book you got 6 years ago and you put on your shelf, that nice person who gave it, whatever. The chant, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalau nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatadanyata. In this age of Kali, how does this poem go? If you want to achieve the supreme goal of life in this age when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way that can never be found. But to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, let my head ever unto your lotus feet bow. So we have time. I have 8:10 here, so we have time for 1 or 2 more poems in this mood. And we'll resume tomorrow with text 20, right? All right. So I don't want to lose my place. So, any requests?
Do we have time for one quick question?
All right, quickly, go ahead.
Good evening, Dravida, sir.
Haribol.
You mentioned the material desires and also how we think we're the enjoyer. How is a householder supposed to manage that? Like, let's say that, the wife wants to go on vacation and the kids want to go to Disneyland. How do we manage that between the desires of those around us and not being the enjoyer?
Well, the idea is that, first of all, you want to marry someone who's also a devotee. Otherwise, it doesn't work. She needs to marry someone who's a devotee, and he needs to marry someone who's a devotee. And then the children need to be trained in devotional service. We had a very good example with Gaur Keshav and his whole family. You saw the kids, Mukunda was such a good drummer, but he's such a small kid, he couldn't hold the drum up, so he had to sit down. So next time I saw him, I said, are you strong enough now you can stand up? He said, yeah, now I got it, you can stand here. But, so the point is that it's an effort in this age, obviously, to do that. But you saw, his kids were in school, but I think they were also getting home training, They weren't exposing them to all of the influence of the school, So it is difficult, but it's possible in this age to focus the family on devotion to Krishna. I don't know if you ever visited them, but I did several times, and they had this big altar in their home. They'd had programs. It was not a big apartment, but half the main room was covered with different, they had deities and everything on there. So it is difficult, but it's possible. And there's also these communities. I mean, I visited Wachua for years, and it's a wonderful community, and they still send me their newsletter. And my God, they have every Thanksgiving they have a kirtan mela. 4 or 5 days they chant for 6-7 hours. And you can sit there in the temple, and they have a special tent that they put because it's too big. So there is a way that one can have a family life centered on Krishna, and raise the children in Krishna consciousness. And this was Prabhupada's vision, to have whole communities like that, and Sapu and Vrindavan and Gita Nagari and the others. It's difficult, it's hard, because as soon as you get the cell phones, I'm in the ashram, but check out this, so it's hard to be part of this society and not be influenced by it. It's true, but that's the situation we're in. And to always be encouraged, I am, at least in my dotage, that whatever progress you make, there's some progress that is not lost. That'll be a devotee in my next life also, hopefully from birth, no question. So that's the hope that we have, and that's how we go on from day to day. And there's always more festivals coming up. There's beautiful Gaur Purnima, obviously, and we're going to have that Harinam the day before. Sunday we haven't had some. I haven't been on Harinam so much the last few years. So that's how we can do it. We do the best we can, and there's always more verses to memorize. I mean, for me, that's always a great refuge, because they're jewels. And now, unfortunately, we ran out of time, but. We have this great treasure of literature and kirtan and festivals and a temple. So if we take advantage of it, we can stay enlivened in devotional service. Okay, we better close. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare.